Hello, welcome on in. It is another edition of the Betting Weekly Dojo with me, Nigel Seeley, and my co-host Neil Channing. Good morning to you all. Good morning to you, Neil.
Morning, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Got back to having you at arm's length. We met for the first time in like 7 years. It was incredible.
It was a good few
But
days, wasn't it? Really
we
good few
did,
days.
yeah, had a lovely time at the tennis in Montpellier, indoor tournament you took me to, and rain stopped play. But apart from that, no, I had a good week actually. Nice to see you, obviously, but I had a good week. Various things. Yeah, the golf was good for me last week. I was playing a lot of three balls and stuff. That worked out quite well. And yeah, no, just good really. And now I'm excited about the Super Bowl this week. That's the most exciting thing.
It is the most exciting. It was. I mean, I tell you what. That's a question of sport question, isn't it? For years to come, what sporting event indoors was delayed for rain? I'm sure there was a snooker event once that was delayed for rain because the rain was coming in on the snooker table. But I can't think of many other sporting events indoors that have been suffered from the weather. So if you've got any of them, let us know. I think darts once was.
I played a poker tournament where it rained indoors, actually, in Vegas. It was such heavy rain that I guess when they kind of build buildings in Vegas, they don't, they're not expecting rain to be a big factor.
I remember getting a telephone call a few years back on a darts tournament, and it wasn't the tournament wasn't delayed or affected because of the weather. But what he said to me it was a rain related or weather related bet, but it was on a darts event. You would think that's a bit strange. But he turned around and said to me, listen, I'm at the tournament here in Minehead, at the whatever it was. There's a tournament in Minehead. And he said the whole of the holiday camp, there is no heating. And do you remember the coup?
I do remember that, and obviously it makes basically you need to go under 180s, don't you, when it's cold.
We're all betting on the 180s because all the players were like this in their hands, and they couldn't grip the darts, and they couldn't throw and it was absolutely freezing.
I had the same thing at the World Championships a couple of years ago. The first matches, the first few days before Christmas of the World Championships, that Crystal Palace is so big, and they weren't selling out in the morning sessions. There just wasn't a full house there, so it didn't really warm up. And Barry Hearn didn't get where he was by leaving the heating on full blast. It was freezing in there, and I think we went 4-0 unders in all the sort of first week morning matches, and that worked out very well. There's one for next year. Remember that one.
So there is angles of attack in weather events when they're indoors. So however crazy you might have seen, and last week's tennis was affected. We made up for it with a nice bottle of wine and some oysters, didn't we? And a nice charcuterie board. Very French.
It was very good. It was very good. But yeah, no, we had a couple of bets, didn't we? We had a winner. One pretty close dog we played that had a shot and didn't quite get home. But yeah, it was fun. Anyway, I enjoyed it.
That was last week. This is this week. And as you touched on there, the big sporting event this week is the Super Bowl stateside. Obviously, huge volume is going to be bet with Bet Rivers throughout the week and on the night and on the in-play as well. Their numbers will be astronomical that are being wagered across in the stateside. And obviously, being we're our American-sponsored show, we thought we'd have a look at the Super Bowl in some depth, some strategies that you will get from one of the best NFL handicappers there is in the business, in Neil, one of the pro bettors, and he'll give you some insights of where you need to go on the Super Bowl betting. Just my strategy on it, when I look at the Super Bowl, I think to myself, how I know there's thousands of props which will come on to a minute, but like the main markets, how possibly can they be won? The line is like 1.5, the total 49.5. They're solid. They're absolutely solid. They're good in millions and millions and millions of dollars. And anyone who said, "Oh, I bet the dog plus 1.5," or I bet I give up 1.5 betting the favourite, I think to myself, well, you're guessing really. It's the final. These. It's not like it's like a cup final over here where you can get shock teams in it. The process of the way the American football works is that the two teams who are going to get to the Super Bowl are ultimately going to be the best two sides, and the handicap is going to be very, very, very hard to beat. And that's why I don't really look at having a bet on it.
Well, I couldn't agree more, actually. Totally agree with you there, Nigel. Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm just trying to look now to find it. So they have what they call the look-ahead line, where bookmakers put up a price on the 4 possible combinations a few days before the championship games. And in the look-ahead line, KC were the favourites by 1.5. The bookmakers predicted that if it was a match between KC and Philly, then the line would be KC by 1.5. The line is KC by 1.5. So I think you're exactly right. I mean, basically, I'm not really going to talk today about like loads of bets that you should have. I think there's going to be more content on Bet Rivers this week on because we win this week. With different bets that you should have, and I might even appear myself. But I thought today I'd talk more about kind of strategy and bankroll and how you should approach the game in a professional way. And I would say the first thing is that there's so many markets available on the Super Bowl. If you've got a limited amount in your bankroll that you want to invest in the Super Bowl, I think any money that you put into the money line or the side or the total is just money that you could have bet on the props, where there's probably much more margin, much more potential. I just agree with you, really. There's so much liquidity. The eyes of the world is on these markets. Also, we had a week off, this Sunday, first time with no NFL for months, which means that these markets have longer to mature. They've got more time for money to knock them into shape. So it's very hard for the prices to be wrong, I think. And obviously, these days we've got in play is such a big thing. When the line changes in play after a couple of downs and the game's kicked off, or maybe after a score, it's much more likely that in that fraction of a few seconds that someone's come up with a price and the market's had a chance to beat it around, that there's going to be a mistake. It's really unlikely there's going to be a mistake right now. The only thing I would say on the side and total is that we were talking the other week, you were talking about soccer and how you're not a big fan of the analytics and the expected goals and all that kind of stuff. You can tell which teams the people are going to bet, and you think they're overbet. Well, I can tell you in this match, if this was a kind of expected goals, analytics, Moneyball situation, that team is definitely the Philadelphia Eagles. But the reason that the Kansas City Chiefs are favourites is because they seem to find a way to get it done. They've got the individual star players that have that little bit of magic. So I guess if I was forced to pick a side, given that you get a 1.5 point start and on any kind of quantitative metrics, then I guess I'd have to go for Philly. But we're not forced. There's lots of options. There's loads of things we can play on. So I'm going to say I don't think you should be betting any of your budget for the Super Bowl on those three main markets. That's the first thing I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to hear the best bets on the Super Bowl, there is a Super Bowl special on Betting Weekly live on Friday, where hopefully Neil will be joining us. But definitely on the panel will be Doug Kazarian and RJ, our American handicapper as well. So we're looking forward to that this week, and the money will be coming. We're going to do a Super Bowl special here, because the other thing that sort of I can't believe. I mean, I know years ago that in the American market and sports betting has become quite sexy now, and obviously there's people having apps on the phones, and it's become legal in certain states. But there was still the razzmatazz of the props being announced the other night. I mean, I was watching it on YouTube. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like at midnight, all the guys going mad. The props in, the queues around the sports books trying to get on the props. I mean, that just seems to me like a wild thing. Can you imagine like FA Cup final day, or week before FA Cup final day over here, and like Corals in Barking High Street or another sports book on the High Street presence announce their special bets, and 200 people were queuing down the high street at midnight trying to get in and have a look at what props they've got. It's like a wild sort of thing to see, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this side of the water, it's a bit different, isn't it? I mean, 200 people tried to go to the betting shop, and I mean, I remember on Super Bowl day going into a bookies in London on the 3 or 4. What was it? It was probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was 7 hours before the kickoff, and I wanted to bet under the running back's yards or something, and somebody.
No hope.
Yeah, and I was betting minus 120. The line was a little bit off. I think they were maybe had it 6 yards too high or something, and it wasn't even a particularly great bet. I was doing my last bit of shop running before the match. There was a phone call to head office. You can have $30 no more. And then we're taking it down. They took the price down. They were so terrified. It's ridiculous.
I'm surprised they
I
found
like
it. I mean, the woman
Yeah,
behind the
yeah.
counter, usually, if you ask for, I've gone in for tennis matches and they've looked at me like I've just come off the spaceship from like.
I know.
So when
It's
when you
crazy.
said Super Bowl, I thought she would have said, "Oh, what time is the race running with Super Bowl?"
I do think the announcing of the props though in Vegas is a great thing. And actually, I don't know whether you're familiar with that in Australia with the Melbourne Cup.
The
They
draw.
have a thing where they sort of have a dinner where they basically all the big punters are gathered together, and if you're a bookmaker there, you're allowed to sort of attend and say, well, I'm prepared to lay this to lose 200 grand or whatever it is, and you can sort of make a name for yourself. And the biggest punter, it's kind of mad in this world of internet that obviously you don't need to go to a dinner to get a bet on, but you show up and you sort of say, well, I want to bet the 4-horse, and I want to have $1 million on it, and then the bookies all kind of get the opportunity to make the headlines by saying, well, I want to lay that one because, and then it's in the press the next day, bookie lays $1 million bet or whatever. And they make a big razzmatazz of it. I think it's really good. I like that anyway. But yeah, the props that's where the Super Bowl, starts and finishes for me. I think that's where the excitement is. So I'm going to quickly just run through the different kinds of props there are and what I see as the kind of pluses and minuses of each type. So
just
the
before
first
you do that,
thing,
Neil, I just
yeah,
want to
go on. Sorry, go on.
Neil, I just want to just say that like Bet Rivers have got some of their props up now on the website already, and to sort of the magnitude of this event. I mean, when we have a World Cup final in soccer, there's probably 600 markets, 500 markets available on the Super Bowl on the Bet Rivers website currently now, and they're going to be more added as the days go on. Currently now there is 1,025 different bets available on this match. There's 1,025 different bets. I don't think I've ever seen that amount of bets ever on any individual sporting event, but 1,025. Now, I'm not asking you to go through all 1,025, Neil, but if you could do the top 500, that'd be great. But you're going to give us a little guide to the prop bets. So sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to let people know how many they actually have.
It's incredible. We go back to the Chicago Bears and William the Refrigerator Perry, and that was basically the start of prop betting. He was a big lumbering defensive player, and they put up a line on him to score a touchdown. I think it was 20-1. And it got back to 3-1, and he rumbled in, and it destroyed the bookies in Vegas. But it was really, in retrospect, it was the best thing that ever happened to them because it gave a story and it made people realise that prop betting was where it's at. The first kind of props you can get is the sort of two-way yes or no. Will this happen? Won't it happen? Or just two-way under/over. So under/over Mahomes passing yards or something like that. Now, the main pro of playing these ones is that you can see quite clearly what's going on. That both sides are quoted, so it's easy to see the juice, the VIG, the bookie profit margin. You can see that if they've got minus $1.10 both sides, or maybe sometimes they might be minus $1.20 both sides. Sometimes, especially over here, they do that in the UK a bit because they tend to have. They put up a line and they're a little bit not very good at updating it in the UK. So they'll stick up a line under/over the running back or something, or under and over 112.5 yards or something. Maybe it'll move in the world market to 118.5, and you'll find someone that's still got 112.5. But unfortunately, you've got to lay $1.20, which kind of negates the 6 yards. It can be good if you get a few yards. But anyway, it's easier with those ones to see what you're playing against. So I think that's why a lot of pros kind of like those kind of bets, and I'll definitely be doing a few of those. The downside is that I think it means that bookies find it easier to, in their mind, know what the correct price is, what the true line should be. And if they get sharp money coming in, if they put up 112.5, say, I can't remember off the top of my head what Saquon Barkley's running yards is, but it'd be something like that. So they put up 112.5, and it gets back to a sharp money comes in for the over, and now it's 115.5. I think the books, they're in a position where they can try and get with the smart money, get with the wise guy money on these kind of markets, and it maybe makes them slightly less beatable. The prices are a bit more liquid, and it's a little bit like I was saying about the main three markets. Obviously, there's way less liquidity on things like over and under the quarterback's yards, but it may be that those ones are slightly harder to beat. The second type is just where there's a kind of one way. Will they do this thing? So obviously the most common one is, will they score a touchdown? Will Saquon Barkley score a touchdown? Will Patrick Mahomes score a touchdown? Whatever. The major downside here is that usually they only offer one side. You can just bet, will they do it? You can't bet, will they or won't they, yes or no. Sometimes you can, some bookies do that. But that means that they have a bigger margin because they only have to offer one side. They don't need to, if they put up, I don't know, Jalen Hurts to score a touchdown at minus $1.10. You can't bet minus $1.10 that he doesn't score a touchdown. So they can add a bit of juice to their market. But the flip side of that is that there's a very competitive event. There's hundreds of thousands of bookmakers worldwide betting on the Super Bowl, and they're all trying to gain a competitive advantage. And they tend to push out their prices. There's also this other thing. I won't go into it in big detail, but you can Google it and look up and find out what it is, or maybe we'll talk about it in a later episode. But there's something in the world called the favorite long shot bias. Basically, the favorite long shot bias says that the shorter the prices, the more efficiently it'll be priced. So in most markets, favorites tend to be trading closer to their true odds than outsiders. If you consistently bet 50-1 chances at random, and then your mate consistently bets even money chances at random, you're going to go broke quicker than he does, because favorites tend to be close to their true price. So actually, if you bet favorites on this to score a touchdown market, that's where you're likely to find the odd plus EV bet. Weirdly, even though, as I said, it is where it's a one-way market, there is a bit of extra juice. But weirdly, you can get a bit of value there. I mean, I can see, minus $1.05, Jalen Hurts is kind of widely around. I wouldn't put anyone off that. I think if you crunch the numbers on that, you'll probably find that ought to be a bit shorter. But that's the sort of one I would like. Whereas if you try and bet, I don't know, 10-1 Justin Watson or something like that, I think if you really do the numbers on that, you'll find that he should probably be more like 20-1. And the bookies are a bit defensive about those longer ones. Now you get the third kind of prop bet is multiple outcome markets. So things like first touchdown scorer, who will be the MVP, which receiver will get the most yards. So the big downside of betting on things like that is that there's a higher over-round, there's a bigger margin. Because there's lots of competitors in it. It's punters look at it and they're like, oh gosh, you get 10-1 or you get 15-1, whatever, and they get excited by that and they bet the person they fancy, but they don't look at the overall market and think, oh, they're betting to 150 here and there's quite a bit of edge for the bookmaker. But the flip side is that I think it's easier for the bookies to make mistakes. Plus, there's also favorite long shot bias as well, and the competitive nature of the book. So, for example, Saquon Barkley, he's the favorite. I don't know what he is with Bet Rivers right now. I'm not looking at, probably be about plus 400, I'd imagine. But there's hundreds of books all around the world, and I can easily shop around and get plus 450. I might even be able to get plus 500. And so, even though when I look at the overall picture, there's quite a bit of vig there, a lot of these players are a bit dead in the market. People like, I don't know, Juju Smith-Schuster or somebody, he's probably like 30-1 to get the first touchdown. His true odds maybe ought to be nearer to 50-1 or 60-1. But it's hard for Saquon Barkley's true odds to be much different to the kind of plus 450 that's being offered. So those multiple outcome ones, I think, again, it's a bit boring, but I think you should kind of look to side with the front few in the betting to to get a bet that's at least neutral EV. And then, of course, the fourth kind, which is the final kind I'm going to talk about of the types of props, is the one that everybody loves these days, the same game parlay.
Not me.
Sometimes, yeah, in the UK, we sometimes call them requester bets or bet builders. Now, obviously, these ones, you might say, well, hang on a minute, why don't they just look at the odds on the different things happening and multiply them up? So, for example, Barkley to score the first touchdown, Barkley to be the MVP, and the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. So we know the Eagles to win the Super Bowl is about 48%. Barkley to be the MVP is about 25%, it's about 3-1. And Barkley to score first is about 9-2 or plus 450. So if you just multiply those up, 18%, 48%, and 25%, it comes to about 2%, something like that, 1.5 to 2%. So, okay, that sounds great. He should probably be 50-1. Of course, he's not 50-1 because if he scores the first touchdown, that means that the Eagles are more likely to win. And if he scores the first touchdown, he's more likely to be the MVP. So the price obviously has to be shorter because of that correlation. The question is and the thing that's really hard to calculate is how much shorter should it be? Should it be half the price, maybe 25-1, or should it be like a fifth? Should it be 10-1? I mean, I haven't actually seen that particular, three leg same game parlay, but I'm guessing if they price it up, they'll probably price it up at about, 6-1, something like that, 7-1. All I do know is that bookies tend to report, and they have like shareholder reports and whatever, that they're winning about 40% on same game parlays. So I would say, as a rule for this Super Bowl, if you're going to play same game parlays, really you should only play them for pizza money. I think you should focus on the ones that are under 10-1, as most of the margin gets added onto the long shot ones. The ones that are like 25-1, often they should be like 100-1 is the real chance of them happening. And also, I think don't go for the ones that are heavily correlated. If you go for the ones that aren't correlated, you do second half to be the highest scoring, the longest field goal to be over, whatever, and so to score the first touchdown. That's three things that aren't particularly correlated in any way. Well, their price should just be the price of multiplying up those three things. But they won't be, because obviously it's the same game parlay and the books like to add lots of margin onto those. But if you go for one like the one I said, the Barkley one, well, that is quite tricky to know. I don't know. If I tell you that Philly to win, Barkley to score first, and Barkley to be the MVP with no correlation should be 2% or 50-1, what would you make it as I don't know. Here's a question, Nigel. What would you make it?
I'd be a lot less than half. I'd be a lot less than 25s. It's a bet that you wouldn't want to lay because essentially they're getting a bigger price that team win the Super Bowl, and the margins, one. Is
6-1 giving you a big enough edge as a bookie, or is 10-1 giving you a big enough edge?
I would be probably very low double figures. 10-1 would be the price I would be happy to lay.
I bet he's lower than that though. But those things, I think they are quite hard to price up. I mean, we've both been doing this for years, and between us, we don't really know whether we would be 6-1 or 10-1, or at 10-1, are we really getting the best of it, or is that a bit greedy? It's kind of hard to know. Whereas that other one that I said about, the second half being the highest scoring, the field goal, that was just easy to price up as a doddle.
I've never really bet on these props, but there was one bet I remember years ago, and you haven't touched it on your guide there with the four props. But these two bets have probably now become like the best. Well, one of them certainly has become one of the most popular props on Super Bowl. And the bet I had years ago was, I think I might have been working as a journalist, or it may have been like the first couple of years with IG Index, but U2 were the halftime show, you two.
Yeah.
And this very strange bookmaker, it was like a random bookmaker that just come up with it. What will be the song that you two sings first? Well, it's not going to be Sunday Bloody Sunday, is it? Beautiful Day was even money. Beautiful Day. I mean,
I do
it was
remember
like,
that.
how can possibly anyone with any brains make Beautiful
it couldn't
Day?
Be the streets have no names.
No names. I mean, what's it going to be? Pride in the Name of Love. It's going to be Beautiful Day. It was even money. I remember that. And this year's halftime act is Kendrick Lamar. Now, I know you're a big fan. So probably what I want to ask you is like, what song do you think he's going to sing first?
I honestly couldn't name a Kendrick Lamar song. I
didn't even if you walked past me in the street or whenever.
I did listen to when he played Glastonbury. I think I did sit through that and I thought it was quite good. I quite enjoyed him, but I think I'm a bit too much of a granddad for Kendrick.
Yeah, Kendrick Lamar. I'm sure there'll be some Kendrick Lamar props. And the other one, this is the one that's the most popular one now, is the length of the national anthem.
Yeah, which is always
John Baptiste is singing the national anthem this year from New Orleans.
I think they've kind of, there's a practice now, isn't there? And then it just always leaks out. It used to always be a great under. I remember betting under a few times, and they tend to kind of that second last line they really elongate it, and that's where they get the extra. But it's normally over under about 2 minutes, isn't it? But I think I don't know. I must admit I didn't look at that this year. Those were two that I haven't really. I don't know. I've got a guy who sometimes sends me things about the halftime. There was one year, I think David Bowie just died, and there was something to do with the color of the dress or something. And somebody said, they're going to honor Bowie by, and we bet red at 11-2 for some reason. No, I can't really remember it, but it came in. It came in, yeah. He had a good reasoning for it. I liked all that. But anyway, so really, I was going to say, those are definitely the different types, and I just think you should bear that. Those are some sort of golden rules. I think that with the multi-way things, where there's like the first touchdown scorer or who will be MVP, where there's multiple selections. It's kind of and the favourites are. With the first TD, it's like 4-1 the field. I think if you're betting things in the sort of 12 to 25-1 region, that's where the bookies get their margin on those things. Whereas if you're betting things in the 5 to 12-1 region, that's where the prices are close to correct. The same with the anytime TD, the players who are between sort of minus 150 to plus 200, they're priced close to their correct price, whereas people who are plus 450, I think they tend to be priced under what they should be. On the same game parlays, don't do the ones that are not correlated. Do the correlated ones, and if you can get a price as close to the multiplying out of the various things, you've done very well. Particularly if it's really correlated. The other thing is that there's lots of sort of odds-on things in the Super Bowl where it's a match between, will something happen or won't something happen? And will there be a missed field goal? Will there be a 2-point conversion? Will a team go for it on fourth down? All these kind of things. Will the match go to overtime? Will there be a safety? Will the match be tied at halftime? In all of those things, the market is definitely skewed because people just like to bet yes. I mean, who the hell wants to have a whole bunch of bets on the Super Bowl, settle down for 3.5 hours and just hope that nothing happens at all?
Me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we just want to win. That's what we're here for. It's not cool because we lose. We're here to try and win. So, we're happy to bet the skinny ones there, bet the short odds. But I think generally the public on the Super Bowl, they're going to want to bet that all those things happen, and therefore the market is slightly skewed. So anything between sort of 5-2 and 14-1 on those kind of markets, any of those things, I think if you're betting the yes, it happens, you're just taking the worst of it slightly. And if you bet that no, it doesn't happen at minus 250 or minus 300 or minus 400, you're often going to get the best of it there. The other thing I would say is just general strategy. How do you approach the night? You've got, I don't know, you've got $100 to spend on the Super Bowl. You've got $1,000 to spend on the Super Bowl. I don't know what your budget is, whatever it is. How do you divide it up? Now, I think that one of the big dangers, I think something that people do is they build their props around their game narrative. So if you are talking about the game with your mates a week before and you say, well, I really like KC and the over. That's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be a big blowout. I think there's going to be lots of points. I think KC are going to win. Well, if your prop sheet ends up looking like KC to win the first quarter to go over, the first half to go over, Kelsey to score the first touchdown and Mahomes to be the MVP, well, you've got a big problem now if Philly win the game, which is going to happen around about 48% of the time, according to the market. So, you could just do the whole lot there. And if you are having, 20 bets on the game or something like that, I think it's best if you try not to have 20 bets that could all fall if the narrative doesn't work out the same way. So if you start to look at things, say, for example, you look at something that won't swing the game. So maybe have a look at the under-over for the second string running backs or for the tight ends or something like that. And maybe bet on will there be a missed field goal or the number of sacks or, something like that. If you have a whole bunch of things like that, now you can be in a position where you have 10 or 15 or 20 bets and you've got a whole load that are not really reliant on the result of the game. Now, you may have a lean in the game. You may feel, well, I'm kind of inclined towards the over. And that might skew it slightly. If you fancy the over, you might go for the quarterbacks to have a lot of pass receptions or for their yards to go over. Whereas if you lean a bit more towards the under, you might go for the running backs to tough it up the jumper and pound the rock basically. So I just feel like generally speaking, you don't want to go crazy pitching it all one way or the other. Other than that, I don't know. I guess I should give you a bet really because I haven't even really mentioned any bets.
Well, I think knowing you as well as I have done, and knowing you, this is probably about the 20th Super Bowl. I think I've probably been in contact with you. I always ask you this time of year, you get a text from me and say, Neil, what's the best bet?
It's always the same one.
19 and 20, I've had the same bet, so I'm guessing it's probably the same.
I've got to bet it. People that know me or that have listened to me talk about the Super Bowl over the years will be laughing already so we'll let you into that joke, people that have no idea. Every single year, I think since about 96 or 97, I tend to bet on the shortest touchdown. It was only because I was working spread betting and I was trying to find things to bet on that our opposition weren't really doing. And I always like bets where it looks like a bit of a trick. People think, well, that doesn't really work, So we did a spread. I just looked at what the shortest touchdown was in every single Super Bowl. And virtually every year, well, not virtually every year, I can tell you that in all Super Bowls, 60% of the time, it comes to 1 yard. There's a 1 yard touchdown. That's in all Super Bowls. 23 of the last 36 years, there's been a 1 yard touchdown, and 5 of the last 7 Super Bowls, there's been a 1 yard touchdown. So 1 yard touchdowns happen just like a real lot of time. Quarterback sneak or the penalty, pass interference penalty comes and it's first and goal at the 1, that kind of thing. Suddenly you've got a good chance. The other thing is that Super Bowls have become higher scoring in recent, in modern times. In the old days, you used to get bad weather Super Bowls and the running game was a lot more dominant. Obviously, if there's less touchdowns in the game, if there's only going to be 3 or 4 touchdowns in the game, there's less likely that there's going to be a 1 yard touchdown. If you have this total is pitched at 49.5, if the game does come 60, well, which is not inconceivable, there's going to be loads of touchdowns, and if there's loads of touchdowns, there's a really good chance of a 1 yard touchdown. But yeah, when we were doing it on the spreads, I kind of thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder what people would think if you asked them. So I started kind of going around asking people, what do you think the under/over should be on? And it wasn't really a commonly traded market in those days. So we put up a spread. Of course, with the spreads, you're betting action points. The more you're right, the more you win. The more you're wrong, the more you lose. So of course, it could be, there could be one touchdown in the game, and it could be a 47-yard pass or something. So the upside of going over seemed huge compared with the downside of selling and finding that it could be, 47 or even 99. So I think I put up 1.7 to 2, thinking that people wouldn't really want to sell, but it's bound to make up either one or on the occasions where it's not one, it's often 2. So I just thought, well, that can't be too bad. It went bananas. I think by kickoff, people were paying 5.2. And there was a 1-yard touchdown. We absolutely cleaned up, but I was terrified. I think my boss was like, he stood over me the whole time, and he was.
I know that I've heard that.
How on earth did you come up with 1.7 to 2? Are you insane?
I know you were right. But it was never a two-way price. I know you were right, but no one's ever going to sell that. It's terrible.
Everyone's an expert afterwards. Yeah. Anyway, now it is a more commonly traded price. So, you can bet over and under 1.5 yards, basically. So it's basically, will there be a 1-yard touchdown or not? And if there's no touchdown, it makes up under. So anyway, the under trades at minus $1.50. I don't know whether, have you got that on Bet Rivers? I didn't check this morning.
There's 1,265 markets.
You quickly just pop through those ones while I'm talking.
I wouldn't have a clue where to find it.
I guess it'll be about that. It normally trades at around that price. Sometimes on the day, people tend to look at it and think, well, that's a bit short, isn't it? I get all the other possibilities and you just get one. And you want to take minus 150. Sometimes on the day, you can get minus 140, minus 130. I've even bet it in past years at minus 120. It didn't come in the last Super Bowl, but I can tell you that Philly had a 1-yard touchdown in 14 of their regular season games and in 3 of their playoff games. So they've had 17 games this year where they had a 1-yard touchdown. KC are a little bit less likely to get a 1-yard touchdown. And obviously, in the Super Bowl last year, they were there and there was no 1-yard touchdown. They've only managed it 6 times in the regular season in their games to be a 1-yard touchdown. But I do think minus $1.50 is a fine price, and I'm going to give you that as a great bet. If you want something a little bit longer price...
You're giving me a load of time to find it, Neil.
I'm trying to give you time.
Don't worry about it. I can't find it.
It's hard to find. If you want something... Have you got first touchdown scorer there? That must be...
I can find that one.
What price is Barkley to be first touchdown scorer?
First touchdown scorer. We've got Barkley to be plus 390.
Plus 390. Well, I have to say, no offence to Bet Rivers, they're obviously shrewd and they're just ducking out of the way a little bit. I think if you shop around, and I hate to say that, I probably shouldn't say that, but anyway, there's a little bit bigger out there. But I think at around about plus 450, which I think you'll probably find, certainly get plus 400. I think you got to have that in your back pocket. He's definitely, he's going to have a good day. I could bet him to be MVP as well. But there's a couple of bets for you. I think I'm going to come on Friday and we'll talk more specifically. I tried to talk a bit more generally today about how to approach the game.
Yeah, good strategy. A lot of people coming into this haven't really been involved in Super Bowl before, and obviously the American viewers have been involved in it many, many years, and a lot of people will want to be looking for a bet, want to have an angle, because it's something that we want to watch, and we never make half-time. That's the problem. We never get to the half-time show, and then we go to bed. That's the problem, the time difference over here. So I come up with a couple of props here. What about these props? What about this for the Bet Rivers? So basically, KC. So I've done it on the theme of KC and the Sunshine Band songs. What about it? Give it up. KC to be leading at halftime and losing at full time. No. Give it up. Yeah,
that's good. I like
Boogie Shoes. Boogie Shoes. Because that's the song from something to do with how many of the touchdown scorers do a dance. We have to think about that one. We'll have to work on that one. Get Down tonight. First play of the day. First.
Well, Boogie Shoes, shouldn't that be something to do with Juju Smith-Schuster?
Well, there you go. We'd have to have him. We'd have to have him in Boogie Shoes. Get Down tonight.
Boogie Schuster.
Yeah, Boogie Schuster. We got Get Down tonight. Score on the first down or something like that.
Yeah.
There's got to be Shotgun Shuffle. It's a song by Casey the Sunshine Band. We've got to have a shotgun theme there.
How are they not? I mean, Bet Rivers should be paying you extra for this.
What about this one? You know, Casey to score two. Sky again. So excited to score 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, and then we play That's the Way. I like it.
Are they still around, by the way, Casey and the Sunshine Band?
I'm sure they are.
Wouldn't you think if Casey, they just get, obviously they've become a bit of a dynasty, haven't they, Kansas, recently? They keep making the Super Bowl. It would be quite good if Casey and the Sunshine Band were the halftime show when Kansas were playing in the Super Bowl.
That would be great.
That'd be great.
But there's some really good props there, Bet Rivers, on the names of Casey and the Sunshine Band songs that you can use. I like that Give It Up one. Casey,
you should get commission on that. Share of any bets they take.
Well, if the marketing department want to get hold of me, they can get hold of me. I'm here all week. Neil, thank you very much again for your time this morning. Appreciate it. It might have had a bit of noise in the background. I've got a builder in at the moment. I've had a burst pipe when I come back from Montpellier. So
driller killer.
Yeah, that's another prop. But it's been great talking to you as usual on Monday morning. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Look forward to the Super Bowl. As I said, Bet Rivers have got over 1,125 different, more than that, I can't remember it now, 1,125 different markets. There will be more added, and there'll be more content added to the Super Bowl week here at Because We Win. As we've touched on the show on Friday, we're going to have a very
So are you saying that if people want to make sure they see all the content, what they really need to do is hit subscribe.
That is
and if they want other people to see it, they should probably press like, really, and make a comment in the comments.
Make a comment if you like the props. If you've got a prop you want to, if you've got a name of a prop that you want to suggest. But I'll tell you what, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It's really important for us to get them. Last week's show, Neil, I think we had a record number of subscribers on the back of the show.
Well, you did go on about it quite a bit. I don't know. I noticed that actually. Lots of people watched last week. I don't know whether that was. Did we pick up a few extra ones by name checking? Other professional gamblers. Is that what happened? I don't know.
Or I think we might be doing ourselves an injustice. Maybe just the fact they like the fact that we were both together in the same room, reunited.
That was lovely.
Very nice. Anyway, memories will live on forever, and we'll be back next week creating more memories as well. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Please subscribe. Please like the content. Remember, Betting Weekly live every day this week, 4 p.m. In the UK and 11 o'clock Eastern time. And on Friday, a Super Bowl special. Neil, Doug Kazarian and RJ will be breaking down all the best bets on the big match. There's your guide to the prop betting. Have a great week, and we'll speak to you all again Monday. Thanks, Neil. Take care.